Let's go to my next guest, actually, and this is rather perfect timing, really. Tom Jones, not that one. He's a senior fellow at the Centre for Migration Control and joins us to talk about, claims that this government is going to be able to reform the European Convention on Human Rights, along with 16 other countries across Europe, of course, which is preventing the deportation of people just like this man, because we don't, they're able to use the European Convention to stay here. Good afternoon to you, Tom.
Afternoon, Julia. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, just your reaction to what was said in court, what Nigel Farage has had to say in this whole case, because this is a classic example, isn't it? We've got a bloke here, he came here illegally, he was on the run from Sweden where he's had all these convictions. They don't want him, we don't want him, we're going to pay for him to go behind bars, then he's going to be out, we're going to be paying for him in an asylum hotel. What are the chances of us ever getting rid of him?
Very low, probably, to be quite honest with you. I think everybody knows the absolutely disgusting state of the asylum system, why we have a system in which this person's asylum request can even be considered.
Exactly.
Is frankly beyond me, and it's beyond most of the British people, really, too.
I mean, and that's the thing, it does get considered, and we know that there are activist lawyers and now very much activist judges who, in their interpretation of the ECHR, will actually give succour to these people. And this is the crucial thing that the government is saying. They've got 16 countries. We understand Germany among them. Germany's got pretty sane on a lot of this stuff only in recent years under its current Chancellor, that they would back a change in interpretation of some of the articles in the ECHR. But this has always been the issue, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with the rights that are there, the right to family life and things like that. But judges have been completely ignoring other key parts of those rights, which is also the rights of the people of the country that people have arrived in.
Yeah, absolutely. So these latest proposals would significantly reduce the court's power to prevent asylum seekers from being deported, which obviously currently can take months, even years. And the hope is that eventually that will lead to a situation in which asylum seekers are stopped from using the ECHR to avoid deportation, even when they've committed a crime, as they currently do. Probably reform of the ECHR is Labour's preferred strategy. It's very complex with leaving the Good Friday Agreement, but long term it will retain the problem, as you mentioned, of activist judges and the replacement legislation that will come in, as we saw with Brexit. With the new system that came in after Brexit, actually, it could lead to an even worse situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so madness, isn't it? Well, that's talking about sort of deporting illegal migrants or people who've overstayed visas as well. Boris Johnson has been defending his record on both illegal and legal migration, in particular the so-called Boris wave of migrants, the huge number of people who came over as a result of visas handed out under his premiership. He's distanced himself, saying sort of basically nothing to do with me, Gov. Tell us what actually happened and tell us, is he to blame or not?
Well, of course he's to blame, but Boris Johnson is and always has been a pathological liar. So net migration added about 2.6 million people to Britain's population.
That's just under as a result of Boris's decisions as Premier.
Yeah, and the Australian-style point system that he introduced. Now, he has put that down to needing large numbers of people to help fill workforce shortages during and after COVID, which would be a great argument if he didn't design the system long before COVID. He then went on to try and blame Rishi Sunak, who, it should be pointed out, is the only Conservative Prime Minister in my lifetime who has ever actually lowered migration. And all he did was undo Boris Johnson's immigration changes. I think one of the interesting things is that people now vastly overestimate the rate of legal migration in this country. I think largely because the quality of migration that arrived under the Boris wave is so low that most reasonable people think a reasonable government couldn't allow people to be here legally.
No, exactly. They just assume, well, of course these people couldn't have been given visas. Where we're told it's about skilled workers, vital workers for vital industries or for carers and the like. Again, one of the reasons we need a load of carers was because we sacked about 45,000 of them for not having a COVID jab, even though they'd worked the whole way through that lockdown period. I mean, but this thing, but Boris Johnson saying, well, it's nothing to do with me. I took back control of our borders. But that was the whole shtick, the Brexit campaign, take back control. He promised you, let's get Brexit done. We'll have control control. We'll have an Australian-style point system. Well, the Australians, A, they've got a much bigger country. They do actually need more people. We're a small island. We don't, thank you very much. But B, they do actually, they're very, very picky about who they take. I mean, they are, they are absolutely demanding that people have the particular skills and particular industries that they need. We're talking about letting in people to run kebab shops, for goodness sake.
I think ballet dancers were on the shortage
ballet
occupation
dancers.
list at one point as well.
Can't get enough ballet dancers and mime artists, for goodness sake. I mean, thing is, we laugh about it, and whenever I actually write about this, I find myself thinking, I don't know whether to laugh or cry, because that's what happened. And this was the man. This is why I've just got no time for Boris Johnson. He was the one who was, the great white hope, promising that he was going to be the guy who got it. He absolutely didn't. We're the ones who got shafted on that front. Tom Jones, Senior Fellow at the Centre for Migration Control, thank you very much for that. Tom Slater, I mean, Boris Johnson's ability to deceive other people and himself knows no bounds. But his sort of claim like, oh, the rise in illegal migration. And we did see, it happened over a number of years, and it was people moving from lorries, moving to boats. It became more visible. But the legal migration was totally within our control. We were no longer going to have people just arriving as they chose from the EU, because we were going to control the number of people coming in. And what most people meant by that was, we're going to limit the number of people coming in. He put immigration on steroids.
And that was always his position. He's always been a liberal on migration. The thing that he needed to understand is that that's not where the country was. I mean, if you look at polls and the sort of level of net migration that people are comfortable with, the vast majority of the population want it, less than 100,000, which it hasn't been since 1997.
I think they want the early tens of thousands, if that.
It's one of those things where there is the democratic deficit, to use that bloodless phrase on this issue, is so enormous. And it's a particular problem for the Tories, because at least with Labour, they're kind of pretending now that they want to get a grip on migration, but no one believes them. The Tory party basically committed a form of political fraud over 14 years. Tens of thousands, you end up with hundreds of thousands. Tens of thousands, you end up with hundreds of thousands. Will take back control, they relinquish control, and Boris Johnson has to take his.
And then hundreds of thousands turned into, again, the total number of people. I mean, 2.6 million people. That's 4% of our population. I mean, it's absolutely, I mean, it's absurd. It is off the scale. No other country can survive that. Again, that's why the vast majority of people now support, limiting immigration, and a majority now are in favour of deportations. Sorry, we're done. Thank you. The door is closed. We've got enough people. And I'm sorry, they can keep shouting racist and bigot at people for that as long as they want. People aren't going to change their minds because they've woken up and they've seen what's going on and they've seen how they've been lied to. And as I keep saying to Boris Johnson, we're not your wives. We're not going to fall for your lies anymore. Sorry, mate. 12:40.